So the HHKB, or the Happy Hacking Keyboard, the one we have today is the successor to the Professional 2. If you've looked into customs at all, this is probably a layout you've seen a lot, and I'm sure you've heard people singing the praises of the Topra switches. Now, I'm not a programmer or a coder. I'm a gamer first and a keyboard enthusiast second. So if you're watching, chances are you fall into that latter category as well. So we're going to get the things out of the way that may shock you about this board first. There are no physical control keys in the lower corners of this board, and it's a custom layout in other ways as well. There's no RGB, there's no backlight of any sort, and in its stock form, it's not MX compatible. So a bunch of keycap sets go out the window automatically. And being as how this board is their top of the line, it retails for a heart-stopping $337 US, with their entry-level models of this board starting at $211. Now, despite all this, I love this board. I look for any and every excuse I can find to type on this thing. We're going to talk about why. You ready? Let's go! Yo, I'm Brian P. You're watching Bad Seed Tech, and today we're taking a look at the HHKB Professional Hybrid Type S from PFU Fujitsu. That's a mouthful of a name, but it's okay to just call it an HHKB. The hybrid designation means it can connect via Bluetooth or USB-C, and the Type S designation means it has silent switches. Physically, there's not a lot to it in terms of size and weight. It shares a similar size with a standard 60%, but it weighs nearly nothing at 529 grams with no batteries, or 572 grams, or roughly 1¼ pounds, with 2 AA's inside for the Bluetooth. Case and caps are both PBT, Legends are die sub, decent thickness on the caps here, just a hint of texture. You can choose 2 colorways, charcoal or beige, and then decide whether you want Legends or blank keys. I can tell you that if you use this board in low light, on the charcoal board the Legends are printed in black. They look great in the pics in the video, but they may as well be blank, and in low light you have zero chance of seeing the alternate Legends on the front of the caps. On the underside you've got 4 small rubber pads. You do get flip down feet that are not rubber tipped, so this board does have a tendency to slide when you use these, even on a desk mat. So 3 different heights here. Luckily, I prefer the board flat, doesn't move around a lot, and the stock angle is near perfect with a wrist rest, like this one from Wooting. This is extremely comfortable for long-term use. You have this battery compartment on the rear of the board. It looks clunky and kind of like a weird add-on, but the saving grace here is that it's only visible when looking top down. To the user, when typing on the board, you never even realize it's there. You also have a flush-mounted USB-C port in the back here. Not being inset into the case means any custom cable you have is going to work fine, which is good since the hybrid board does not include a cable of any sort inside the box, regardless of the fact that you need to be connected via USB to take advantage of the key remapping software, which is also Windows only, I believe. And that's a big difference between the hybrid and the standard version. The remapping software is not supported on the standard version of this board. You'll be limited to the dip switches on the bottom, which we have here on the hybrid as well. Bare minimum, you need to set dip 1 and 2 to whichever OS you're using, and I highly recommend setting dip 3 as well, so that delete key is going to turn into your backspace without having to trigger the function key at the same time. Especially as you get used to a new layout or form factor, that backspace key is going to see an embarrassing amount of use. And this layout, it's different but not crazy different, like using a split or an ortholinear. For gaming use or people just used to a standard 60% even, this does come with some challenges. A reason why 65% has become so popular lately is the inclusion of dedicated arrow keys. If you've been on a standard 60%, you've probably got used to having caps lock reassigned to function, and IJKL is your arrows, which is great once you get used to it because your right hand doesn't have to move off position. Not here. Arrows are function, which is here, and the punctuation cluster next to the enter key. Naturally, you will get used to this in time, but it's not ideal when you're first starting out. Again, to programmers or people who use specialized text editors designed for coding, this is going to be pretty irrelevant. Of course, you can use the software to compensate, but you still got to find a place to put that control key, which usually means giving up your left Alt or OS key. So on this board in the default layout, control lives where your caps lock normally would. Now for shooters, this is going to take some getting used to. I normally have my crouch or my prone assigned to mouse 5, so this doesn't affect me a lot. It's also kind of nice to just be able to slide that pinky over to trigger that, provided you don't reassign caps lock to a different function in your game. Right shift here is a 1.75U and function is a 1U right next to it. Above enter, you have the delete or backspace key depending on your dip switch instead of backslash, which takes some getting used to, but it grows on you because it's less of a reach as opposed to trying to hit the far top right of that board. Usual backspace location then is replaced by 2 single unit keys for both backslash and tilde. Of course, if you opt for the hybrid and use the software, you can reassign everything to get as close to a standard layout as possible, but that kind of misses the point of this board. All right, the money shot of this whole thing, the Topra switches. I love these. I absolutely love them. I look for any and everything I can possibly type on this board. These are completely different animals from anything you've typed on before. Electrostatic capacitive switches. Light tactile, 45-gram weight. The assembly is unlike anything you've seen in the world of mechanical keyboard switches. You've got this slider stem that pushes down on a rubber dome, and underneath that is a lightweight conic spring. The Type S is their silenced version, so they also have little O-rings that dampen the return sound. It also shortens the key travel from 4.0 to 3.8 millimeters. Stabilizers are unique here as well. They feel great. They actually come properly heavy lubed from the factory, though I opted to still add some in certain spots. So when you pull the O-rings out of this board, you get that little helicopter sound, that side-to-side rattle like we heard on the Razer Huntsman TE. That tells me there's more going on with the Type S than simply the addition or the removal of these O-rings. And there's no ping on this board at all. Some reviews you may have read might say that there's ping associated with the Topra switches. Almost always, it's either talking about the Realforce or the Leopold boards, because those both have a steel plate as opposed to plastic on this board. I couldn't resist the urge to lube this board while I had it apart anyway. So here it is again with the O-rings, unlubed versus lubed. So hitting this whole board with some 205 grade 0 made a huge difference in the sound and the feel on this thing. I love it. I probably went a little heavy on the left shift and the enter key. Hopefully that breaks in a little bit, and it does kind of dampen that signature thock sound that people associate with Topras. Nonetheless, feels amazing, sounds amazing to me. Definitely worth the trouble. So the other big thing the hybrid offers is Bluetooth. Now this isn't something I would personally use a lot, but for those of you who'll be taking this keyboard with you often, this is great. It's also small and light enough to do exactly that. Just throw it in your bag and go. The Bluetooth here is rock solid, amazingly stable, really quick to connect. It's compatible with PC and Mac as well as Android and iOS devices, and it can be paired to up to 4 devices so you can switch on the fly. In practice, it works great. As expected, it caused zero interference with 2.4 gigahertz wireless peripherals. No interference even when using a Bluetooth mouse like this Corsair Darkcore RGB Pro. I think this may be my new travel combo here, even though the Darkcore is pretty heavy for gaming. Here I am actually gaming with the HHKB in Bluetooth, the Darkcore in Bluetooth, and wearing AirPods connected to the PC via Bluetooth for the audio, and this is where it broke down. Certainly not the keyboard's fault, it's just too much stuff working at one time, and it kind of feels like your game is lagging out. So is it possible? Yeah, I just don't recommend it. But as a wireless gaming keyboard with your favorite 2.4 or wired mouse, absolutely. They rate the battery life here at like 3 months for Bluetooth. I probably have 15 to 20 hours on the Bluetooth right now, and it's still showing 100% battery in Windows. Now, the biggest downside to Topra is that a lot of the things that you love about custom keyboards goes completely off the table because these are not MX compatible. Like a lot of the stuff you've seen, probably everything you own is MX compatible. This is not. So there's no hot swap. There's no experimenting with different switches. There's no customizing your switches at all outside of just basically lubing this board. And a lot of the keycap sets you've seen aren't available. Your keycap selection for aftermarket keycap sets is going to be very limited by comparison. There's some great sets out there, but they're often sold out or not shipping at all, especially right now. The real Force boards actually come with MX compatible stems, so you can at least use MX keycap sets there. There are replacement sliders out there too that can convert your Topra to MX compatible stems, but these get mixed reviews, anywhere from sacrificing that coveted Topra sound to the stabilizer sliders not fitting correctly, to the stems themselves causing caps to sit crooked on the board, to the admission that they specifically don't work on the spacebar of the HHKB, and that's if you can even find them in stock. There are of course numerous custom keyboard options if you just like the layout but want to stay in the more flexible world of MX, but you're sacrificing the Topra sound and feel here, which for me is the main attraction. So the next obvious question is, which MX style switch feels closest to the Topra? The best answer I can find to this so far is the Holy Pandas, but I can't verify that yet. It would have to be a light tactile with a soft bottom out, so probably like a silent tactile, because you'd want that bumper on the bottom, and like a really light spring weight, possibly progressive. And there'd have to be tons of lube involved, just like countless other areas of my life. The raincoat mod used to be a thing, not even sure if it's still a thing anymore, but rest assured I'll be looking into it. So ultimately, here's the thing. This is an expensive board, no way around it, but I really feel like you get what you pay for here. It's probably less compelling for gamers and more compelling for people who actually earn a living typing on a keyboard. But for me, I love typing on this board more than any other board I own, and that's a lot of different keyboards at this point. If I'm working at a different desk, I will go get this keyboard and bring it to wherever I'm working. The quality is solid, the feel and sound is superb, and the Bluetooth is bulletproof if you're into that. If you don't need it, I would go with the standard Type S over the hybrid and save a bunch of money. I'm such a fan of the Topra switch that this has opened up a whole new rabbit hole for me, so buckle up for some content that revolves around Leopold boards, the Real Touch stuff, and definitely some Norbauer stuff. Links down in the description. Any questions, hit me in the comments or drop by the Discord. And that's it for this time. I'm Brian P. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that sub button, and until next time, stay up.